No stairway. Denied.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, once again, I get those goosebumps every time I hear that intro. Every time.
There's a dance song that's popular with the youth, Brad, and it starts with this line. It goes, I get those goosebumps every time. Have you heard that one?
No, is that something new?
Yeah, you know what? I'm surprised. You've probably heard it on 107.1 before, the Westplex. Which, by the way, that station might get even better in the coming months, from what I heard. Who has any idea though? But yeah, there's some like hipster song that starts, I get those goosebumps every time. It's like a dance song, you know?
Hold on a minute. I have my morning. I think I'm allergic to you, John.
You're not the first person to say that. You are the first man to say that, though.
I get up in the morning, and I don't have any problem. And then the minute I get on the air with you, I start to cough. What the hell is that?
I think it could be your subconscious, Brad, or it could be the fact that, like, as you've spoken about before, just the pressure to perform, Brad.
There's a lot. I know that
pressure.
Hey,
we're not going to go there.
Whole deal. Okay, first off, we have to get into the top three, but we set records yesterday with the viewership on our YouTube channel. I mean, we went through the roof on two of the videos, and the interesting thing was I had a feeling that the Scott Fawn video would do well. The video that kicked butt was the one with you and the goofy Bill Eigel, Taylor Swift, which one is it video. I mean,
yeah, it's the Tortured Politicians Department, Brad. That's our new segment.
We're going to do that on Wednesdays now?
I think we should. I think we should. And this is a good opportunity for us to say thank you to everybody who shared the video yesterday. We got a lot of feedback on that. We're not one of those shows where we're like, oh, hey, look at our numbers. Look at everybody loves this stuff. But we are the type of show that points out to people, thank you for spreading that around. And thank you for sharing that.
Right. And by the way, if you're listening to this on the video, if you're listening to this on the YouTube replay, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, and I know everybody says, hit that subscription button, but it's like the difference between night and day with YouTube and their algorithms, because if you hit that subscribe button, and if you hit, then what's all the guys say? Hit that subscribe button and smash that notification button. They all say smash that. Like, okay, why is that? Have you ever figured that out? Why do you hit the subscribe button?
I do know, Brad, and I think it has to do with the fact, boy, this is our second PG-13 reference of the show. I think it has to do with the fact that on a certain demographic, smash is a positive verb that generally means that you're, it just has a lot of positive connotations, Brad.
Okay, let's move on.
Let's go. And you know what? A little something has to do with maybe a frown, Brad. And I don't mean a vertical smile. I mean a frown. And let's get to that.
Time for the John Combe Best Top
3. Boo, 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 boo. There they are, Brad. Our singers are international. They're the pit bull. They're the pit bull of theme song music, Brad.
Good thing you didn't mention the Drake, because he's in trouble. I don't know if you heard that story. And I would talk about that later.
No, I didn't. Maybe we'll get to that.
There's an interesting story behind that. Okay,
Aubrey.
What are we doing right now?
We're on our way to the number one in third place.
Brad, have you ever stepped onto an elevator and you see a nice lady in there and you give her a smile and she just glares at you?
Happened this morning on the way to work.
I bet it did. And, it's a common thing for many of us, Brad. But you know what? That's going to get a little bit more common at the Missouri Capitol. A scowl, a frown. You say, John, what are you talking about? Are you some sociologist? No. I'm talking about a bill that passed the Missouri House that we've talked about before here, Brad. And it's a bill from our local hometown German company, Bayer, that would shield the company from some pesticide lawsuits, particularly ones involving cancer. Now you say, John, what does this have to do with elevators? Well, the bill passed, and the Associated Press spoke to a state representative named LaDonna Appelbaum. Not to be confused with Bonita Appelbaum, which was in A Tribe Called Quest song. But LaDonna Appelbaum, a state representative from St. Louis County, she voted against the measure. Now, I don't mean to make light of this, Brad, and I don't mean to poke fun at this element of it, but Representative Appelbaum, who is undergoing treatment for cancer, and the cancer has affected many of us. I lost my mom to cancer, so everybody can relate to somebody going through cancer. But LaDonna Appelbaum was particularly perturbed by the fact that this bill passed. And she told the Associated Press, if you vote for this bill, you are voting for cancer, and it will hurt my feelings, and I will not smile at you on the elevator. So there's a number of representatives, Brad, that you know, in the 80s, I forgot exactly what the vote is here. I have it up. But, you know, some number in the 80s of Republicans will not get a smile from State Representative LaDonna Appelbaum.
That's just sort of weird. I mean, first off, I think it's sad that she has cancer, but you're not going to smile at people? I mean, well, what is that? Is like that the kiss of death, and pardon the pun? You know, I'm not going to smile at you. Oh, my God, she didn't smile
at me. I think so.
Me.
And, you know, I mean, let's give her credit. Like, she's talking about how she feels. And, you know, there's something to be said for representatives voting and speaking based on their heart and their emotion and how they feel. Now, whether or not anybody after the vote sits down and says, man, I was going to vote the other way on that, but I wonder if I could go back and switch my vote because I want LaDonna's smile.
Isn't there a Hall & Oates song like that? Oh, that's Sarah's Smile. Oh, that's not.
You know, I don't know that song, I don't think.
Sarah Smile?
Yeah, I don't think I know that one. I like Hall & Oates, but I don't think I know that song.
Do you know the new, here you're going to sidetrack me. Do you know all the new controversy with Hall & Oates?
No, I don't.
They're suing each other. Do you know this whole crazy weird story?
No, I don't. What are they upset about?
Well, we'll talk about it later. It's not anything important, but it's one of these crazy things where you go like, okay, that's sort of weird. You know, I mean, I guess it would almost be like Brooks and Dunn, you know, the very successful country duo. One day you open up your news feed and it says Brooks is suing Dunn and Dunn is suing Brooks. And it's going like, okay, what? I mean, they both made millions and millions and millions of dollars. Why are they upset at each other? You know, I don't get it, but that's life in the big city, right?
Up a notch to number two.
Number two.
One of your pet issues, Brad. You believe in the radical idea that someone running for a congressional seat should live in that district.
Yeah, isn't that unbelievable?
A state representative named Aaron McMullen from Independence, Missouri, has introduced a bill that would make Missouri require congressional candidates to actually live in the district in which they're running. Now, Brad, here's a trivia question. What's wrong with that proposal?
Well, it's against federal law, right?
That's true. And that's a point that Aaron McMullen acknowledges. Now, first of all, let me tell you my bias. I think Aaron McMullen is fantastic. He's one of my favorite representatives. I think he's great. And in this Columbia, Missourian story, which actually shows that it was posted to their website on the 23rd. So to quote Blink-82, I'm a day late and a buck short on this one. But Aaron McMullen says, yes, there are constitutional objections to this, but he's working with Jay Ashcroft's office on a little bit of language tweak there. And McMullen's point is, okay, this might not be something we can do in the state, but we should have a national conversation about whether it makes sense to amend the U.S. Constitution to require candidates to actually live in their congressional district. Now, McMullen's legislation, Brad, wouldn't go into effect. And let's face it, it's hypothetical. And he says that he's doing this just to start the conversation. But hypothetically, it wouldn't go into effect if the bill passed. It wouldn't go into effect until 2026. And so it gives folks a little bit of time. It wouldn't affect the Bob Onders of the world who might not live in the district at this moment. But I think it's an interesting conversation to have, Brad. And it goes to show that maybe sometimes, even if you know something isn't constitutional, you start the legislation to have the conversation. It's kind of like Representative Doug Mann's legislation that we discussed yesterday about kidfluencers. He knows the bill is not going to pass, but it's his last term, and he says, hey, let's at least have this conversation. What do you think, Brad?
Well, first off, I do think it's the law that you don't have to live in the district. And I assume that if you take that to the extreme, somebody from Illinois could file for CD3 as well, too, correct?
I don't know. Maybe you have to. Maybe you have to actually live in the state. I'm not sure.
Well,
somebody will correct us on that.
I think the irony in Bob Onder's case is that he did live in what is now CD3 for a long time, and he recently moved out of CD3 into CD2.
That's right, yeah.
So, I mean, that to me is sort of the irony of that crazy story, is that he was a resident of Lake St. Louis. If I'm not mistaken, I think almost all or a great deal of Lake St. Louis is in CD3, isn't it? Because it
is, yeah.
And the CD3, if you know what we're talking about, this is this crazy thing where every 10 years they do the census, they redistrict, and it used to be that some of these districts were quote-unquote compact, and now if you look at the crazy CD3, it goes from, it has what, the southern part of Columbia? What did he say?
It's got Columbia in it, and then in the Jeff City area.
We talked to Taylor about that. He said that the Broadway is, if you are literally in Columbia, if you are on the north side of Broadway, you're in the congressional district. What district is that? I don't know what.
It would be that's split between 4 and 3.
So, and if you live on the south side of Broadway in Columbia, you're in CD3, and it goes all the way. Essentially, this little finger of it goes all the way along I-70 all the way to the Mississippi River at one point on the northern part of St. Charles, and then he sweeps around on the south side and goes into what, Jefferson County, doesn't it? Isn't it like the northern part of Jefferson County in CD3?
Yeah, I think that's where it splits.
It's just sort of nutty,
if I recall correctly. And the big battle in there is that they didn't know, and Taylor didn't talk about this, but when they were drawing the districts, they didn't know where to split it in Columbia. And Taylor actually broke in and said, "On Broadway, on Broadway."
I thought that was George Benson that did that, but that's a whole other story.
No, it was Taylor Burks.
Okay.
The number one.
And the number one.
Courtesy of St. Louis Public Radio, more specifically, Science Friday, Brad. So to be more clear, NPR is distributing this, but this is produced by American Public Media, I believe, is who put this together. A story on the St. Louis Public Radio website about how the evil of climate change, Brad, could affect something that's actually serious, which are the Superfund sites. So a little bit about Westlake landfill and the idea that the Superfund sites across the country, as we have more and more, quote, climate change, how flooding could affect some of these Superfund sites. So they start off specifically talking about the Westlake landfill. Now, to be fair, Brad, I haven't listened to this interview. This is by a woman named Shayla Farzan, who was a content creator reporter for St. Louis Public Radio for quite a while. And I imagine, though, Brad, even though I haven't listened to it, I imagine the call will be, as always, for more money to defend these sites. They also worked a little bit into the text about the usual argument about race victimhood and how Superfund sites are in minority areas and how that's horrible and whatever. But I'm guessing the call is going to be for more money to protect these Superfund sites from potential flooding. So that's our number one story today, Brad.
Interesting. Okay, I have a couple things that let's go ahead and take the break right now. I have a couple things that I want to come back to that of what you talked about, but more specifically, interstate highways, and also me listening to some of our shows. You brought up Tim Eby. Was that Monday?
Yeah. Have you looked into this, Brad?
Well, I sort of, once again, my ADD sort of took us off track on that. And I didn't really get the end of what you were talking about with Tim Eby. But you know who Tim Eby was? Well, it's still alive. He's still very, very much
still
alive.
With us.
He was the general manager of KWMU, St. Louis Public Radio, for quite some time. Matter of fact, he came in, I believe he was the initial successor to Patty Wente, my friend from way back. And by the way, thanks for putting that on the summary the other day, that I came to the assistance of Patty Wente, which I still think is sort of a funny story.
Very chivalrous of you, Brad. The irony of you protecting somebody from St. Louis Public Radio.
But see, Patty, like I said, I had this crazy relationship with Patty, which dated back to the 80s when she first came to St. Louis, and I was doing business with Patty, and she was the general manager at KWMU. And once again, despite what her political leanings may be, I have always found her to be an absolute positively refreshing personality. She is just so different than 99.9% of the population. And she's got an energy level that just drives people nuts. And to a certain extent, I think that's why she didn't get along with the KWMU crowd, who always.
And do you
like
think
that.
that's why you like her, Brad? Because you've been accused of having that kind of energy level.
Well,
and when I say by accused, I mean by me.
Well, but see, I like people that have passions for things. That's always been my case. You give me. And like John's the kind of guy that we've already talked about this, that John will not go with the upstart company. If Gene Frederick, let's go back 60 years, if Gene Frederick comes is a young guy working out of his pickup truck and then knocks on John's door, mister, so I think your roof needs some repair, and you would say to him, have you been in business for at least 30 years? No, sir, I'm just getting my start.
That's right.
I plan on doing a very good job with roofs, and I think my company will be around for decades. I'm sorry, but I'm John Combes, and if you don't have 23 years of experience, I'm not. What if I do your roof for free? No, I'm not allowed.
I say, get out of here. Get me some Yelp reviews, and we'll talk about it. I'm going to go back and watch my talkie on the television.
That's John. Okay. Not wanting to give the upstart companies a shot. Okay.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combes' book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?